This is the last session in your grammar course. You've done so well to get here. We've just been talking about syntax, and as a sort of continuation of that conversation, I just wanted to talk with you briefly about main clauses and subordinate clauses. I think it's really helpful to have an understanding of these units of meaning, just so that you can see all those grammatical units at work in a sentence or in a clause. So let's start with a main clause. A main clause makes sense if it stands alone. It always has a main verb. It can be a sentence, but it can also be part of a sentence. You can get lots of main clauses strung together with conjunctions, which would form a polysyndetic sentence. Lots of conjunctions. I'll talk more about polysyndetons in the toolkit if you'd like to join me on that course. A subordinate clause, while it may contain a verb, doesn't make sense on its own, and that is a really important idea to grasp, because I see in a lot of writing the author hasn't necessarily understood what can stand alone and what can't. Subordinates need a main clause to complete their sense. So here's a main clause for you. He's just too hard to ignore. And a subordinate clause, although I've been here before. The subordinate clause plus a main clause would make a full sentence. Although I've been here before, comma, he's just too hard to ignore. This is a lyric from Amy Winehouse, in case you were wondering. But if you break them apart, one of them makes sense on its own and one of them doesn't. That although topples the subordinate clause into an incomplete fragment of wordage. It can't stand alone. We need to finish it off. So read this opening sentence from Jane Austen's Emma, and if you do the toolkit, we'll be returning to this sentence when we're talking about tricolons. It's very useful. Emma Woodhouse, handsome, clever and rich, with a comfortable home and happy disposition, seemed to unite some of the best blessings of existence, and had lived nearly 21 years in the world, with very little to distress or vex her. Now have a go at highlighting which clauses in there are subordinate and which could stand alone. Austen was an absolute genius at piling up strings and strings and strings of clauses that sort of topple over one another. And this is a great example. I'm going to do the big reveal now. And there you can see the mixture of subordinate and main clauses that go to make up that perfectly balanced sentence. It's rather like an equation, I think, a mathematical equation. It's just perfect. And the combination of main and subordinate clauses creates this impression of style. And I think it's what marks a fantastic writer apart.